If you work in HR or TA and have been trying to figure out what all the big deal with Claude Code is, this video is for you. I'm going to walk through a full use case of how you can set up your own AI sourcing tool to help you with a recruiting search. You can use the same process with whatever you like. I just get a lot of requests for recruiting related activities. So hopefully this is helpful. What we're going to do is go through the whole implementation. I'm going to run through things quite quickly. It'll probably take you about 45 minutes to set all this up yourself, but all the tools that you need and the full walkthrough is available in the resource section. So on the Meander Talent Academy, just click through resources and you should be able to download from there. It's not live just yet, but you'll click on toolkits and it'll be one of the new toolkits that we'll post as soon as this video goes live. Very quickly, before we jump into that, I want to give you a quick preview of a new course that's coming. It's Applied AI for HR. 3 modules. Module 1 is how to actually build the data analysis capacity as a HR or TA leader. So we walk through capacity planning and how to actually use different tools like Claude for Excel in order to improve your capability there. Section 2 goes into more depth on how you can actually use AI as a co-pilot. We use a recruiting co-pilot example, can be applied to anything as if you're HR BP or you're working in people analytics. We go through some ideas on how to think through automating part of your workflow so that you can effectively use this to improve your overall output. And then module 3 is actually how to communicate that back out. If you're coming in from a non-analytics background and you're all of a sudden having to communicate with data, we kind of go through how to tee that up, get decisions approved, get decisions made based on all the experience I've had, but also from speaking with dozens of people as I've created this course to actually gain insight into what's needed. So that's coming on Monday, April 20th. You'll probably be watching this much further in the future, so this should be live and ready to go. We're actually coming up with a brand new package where you basically get access to everything on the platform, including all future releases. All of the resources from these videos will always be free. You can just sign up, download whatever you need, and you'll see that the video is actually embedded within here too, so it's quite easy to stay on top of. So that's the kind of quick walkthrough. Let's go through the talent sourcing with Claude Code. Now, I like using Claude Code because it has a capability to build its own tools. Now, it probably sounds a little esoteric, but when we first started looking at agentic workflows, there was this idea that you would replace your team with a whole bunch of different agents. So maybe you have like one agent that writes the code, one agent that writes marketing copy, one agent that does sales process, one agent that does admin. But I think what we found is that all you really need is one agent that can write code. And once it can write code, it can take any of the different inputs and use cases, create the right tools and the right approach that you need. So you kind of only really have that kind of one agent. And instead, what you have is an array of different skills that agent can then use. So it's like having a kind of a generalist as part of your team who then has a whole bunch of different kind of ways that they can use their skills to get things done. So that's what we're going to cover here. We're going to show you how to set this up yourself, how to build your initial agent with your initial skills, and then really how to think through building the skills for all the other processes that you might want to follow. So in this document, you can download the kind of Word document. It'll give you the full walkthrough that I'm going to go through today. So I'm going to skip over some things very quickly, but what I would advise you to do is go through this in slow time so that you really understand what's going on. And once you understand it, you can experiment and then do whatever it is you want. But I'd say start here, given that this is a kind of hopefully a full end-to-end walkthrough, and then take it from there. So we're going to go through the build out. Firstly, we'll talk through what we're actually doing here. So we're going to take a 3-part process to finding potential candidates for a new role that we've launched. So we're going to start off by doing market research or an ecosystem map where we're going to look at where are all the potential areas that we should be looking to find the right candidate for this next role. We're then going to do individual sourcing, and this is where actually looking for individual people within those areas is going to be key. One of the challenges here that I'll call out ahead of time is that LinkedIn doesn't allow you to use automation on their platform. And so it's going to be much harder to actually use LinkedIn as a database to search for potential talent. But you can actually go off LinkedIn and start to look at other resources, which is great if you have a CRM or you have a database of a talent community. You can actually start looking there in addition to your kind of main LinkedIn recruiter platform. And what's helpful if you have an MCP that's already connected to that database, you can just connect Claude to that, and then Claude Code is going to be able to kind of leverage that. All we're going to do is get the project set up and just show you how you can potentially use it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is install Claude Code. All of the tools here are based on using a Mac. And to install it, we're actually going to work directly in the terminal, but to make it as generic as possible, we're going to use the terminal, which everyone has. It's called a command line on Windows, and you just use Spotlight search for terminal, open that up, and it's going to give you this. I've already navigated to my folder, but what you want to do is actually get to the place that you're going to put these resources. You will have downloaded the file, and you'll have two files. You have the zip, which is all of the skills and the instructions that we're going to give to Claude, and then the sourcing doc that I'm kind of walking through here. And when you unzip it, you'll have this folder. Put the folder wherever you want this kind of project to live. I have it in a special experiments folder that I use on my Mac Mini, but it's going to have a bunch of different files in here, and you'll see what these files do. So once we've got the project set up, we'll have everything in the local folder. If I just search for it, you can see this now mirrors that overview that I just showed. We have our agents folder, we have our skills folder, and we have three files that Claude is going to use to actually build everything out. And all we need to do to activate Claude Code is just type in Claude in our terminal. And because we've already installed this ahead of time, it's going to this is going to look very similar to what you would see in the app or the browser-based tool. But what we have here is a direct access to Claude Code without any of the middleware. So things get a little faster, and we can actually refine things a little bit better because we have more control over things. So you see that we're working in the directory of Claude Max, and so everything is kind of as expected. I'm not going to go into too much detail on Claude Code. You can find a video on how to walk through that, but what I am going to do is paste the first step of our process in so we can get this running and we can see what's going to happen. So we can see here we're searching for a product manager for a marketing software company in London, and what we want to do is find companies in UK and Europe where this role is a core function, focusing on technology and research. But what it's doing now is running that search with the tools that we've defined, and it's going to come back with the ecosystem map, different companies, and maybe some recommendations as to what to do next. So you can see that what we asked it to do was find companies, identify communities, look for newsletters, podcasts, or writers in this space. And so this is going to give us all these potential different angles that we might want to go down. Now, if you have different approaches, maybe you're doing more kind of science-based searches, where it's actually more important to look at a different kind of paper resources or publications for the industry, you can expand to that. And as long as it's searchable online, you can actually potentially uncover a lot more individuals where you may not be able to find them on LinkedIn or GitHub or some of those more traditional sites. So here we have all the feedback. Here's the kind of gaps, recommend next steps. So confirm the brief on stage preference, whether retail. And so now it's asking us for more guidance. Basically, it's said, okay, I've done this search. I don't think we have enough critical mass in order to run this search effectively. So let's confirm the brief. So what I'm going to do here is extend to large marketing software companies. And all we're doing here is saying, okay, this initial brief was a little too narrow. Let's expand a little bit more. So it's now looking for some of the larger marketing companies and looking at potential London offices. And hopefully it's going to come back with a little bit more information that's going to be helpful as we move forward. So here we go, Salesforce, Adobe. So yeah, these are big names. And if you're running a search, you're probably going to want to look at these large companies to find talent, just to get your critical mass. Even if you do end up honing in on people with startup experience, this is just going to give you that volume that we need in order to build that out. Okay, so now it's coming up with kind of additional information. Now it's taking these recommendations and this insight from the skills that we've built in. And again, you can go into the skills file, see what's in there, and understand how we've defined that, and then edit that based on how you actually want to run things. But what we're doing here is coming up with another recommendation, narrow to an enterprise tier. And so all we can do here is accept the recommendation, move to phase 2. And again, it's like interacting with your chat, but you can see already Claude Code is using different skills that it has to go a little broader without kind of expanding outside of the realm of what we actually want it to do. And so this is really important because when you have a very specific project, you can then define that as, this is the area that I'm focusing on, and we don't really want to go kind of beyond that. So here we go. We're actually doing a web search here. So one of the challenges that I mentioned here is that we're not going to get a lot of detailed candidates because we don't have access directly to LinkedIn. We can't scrape LinkedIn profiles. And so this is only going to give us kind of a limited amount. And it even says that there are kind of verified LinkedIn URLs. And we've explicitly defined in the skills that we don't want it to make up LinkedIn URLs. If you've used AI tools in the past to do sourcing, you may have found perfect candidates. You click the LinkedIn URL and it generates a page that's not found. We actually want dedicated searches for individuals. So it's actually finding some people who have public records. These are probably people that are more senior in the role, but you can see how it's already starting to prioritize the leads based on the fit for the role, which we have only very loosely described in this setup. Focuses more on the tool as opposed to everything else that goes with it. Over 30% of candidates fail the quality bar, so we actually have the skill set up to review the quality of the candidates that we're getting through. And this is, I think, a helpful kind of first step in the process as you're kind of building out the search. And then there's more steps in here that we can go through where we can keep iterating over the top of this. What you can actually see is that this is all set up, this is running, this is not using any kind of code that I've written, it's not using any proprietary third-party tools. This is just using these skills that we've set up within the project that you can then edit, you can develop your own skills and actually create something that is very unique to what you want to do. And so section 4 is really talking about building your own skills. So actually how to develop those yourself. And then the kind of quality loop where the way that we've actually developed this is we're not using kind of like a one hit, go away and find this thing and then give me the right answer. We're following this kind of like process where we're defining what good looks like. And so it's pulling all these skills together to figure out like, what do I need in order to move forward to the next stage in this process? So if we zoom all the way out, what we're actually seeing is that this is a full end-to-end workflow. It's just we're using Claude Code to automate the steps and moving through the process. But we are still in control of that workflow because we're defining what good looks like, what steps to take, and we're ultimately making a decision at the other end. So what we're not doing is automating away the decision for the hiring process to an AI tool. We're actually in charge of the process ourselves. So hopefully we can feel confident in that. And the big thing to take away here is what we're not doing is this kind of naive prompt approach where we're saying, go and find me a product manager in London, which is going to give you a result very quickly, but it's going to be a very poor result. What we're actually doing is spending a little bit more time. We're developing the skills. We're using an agent. We're using Claude Code to run the search. And it's going to take a little bit of time, but we're actually going to get some dedicated results. We're actually going to get some high quality potential candidates, especially if we connect in a talent community or another proprietary data source that we have access to and we can actually use. We actually can really utilize the data that we have because we're connecting it directly to Claude. So final thing to leave you with really is how to make it your own. So really go into the skills that I've generated here, try and understand what it's doing and the process that it's doing, and then figure out how you would want to change that in order to do what you want to do. And the big thing here is creating your own skills from your own process. So if you are searching for a particular role, or maybe you would want to develop something that's outside of recruiting, write out your process step by step. Say, okay, step 1 is for a performance management process. Step 1 is we gather the reviews from the hiring manager. Step 2 is we check for bias. Step 3 is we send any biased reviews back to the hiring manager for review. Step 4 is that we then see if the scores match the text that was written. So all these kind of like steps in the process, and you can have as many steps as you need. But once you've wrote those steps out, you can actually paste that into Claude Code, ask it to develop its own skill so that you can then use that skill in the future and you don't have to write these steps out over and over again. You can just ask the question of the tool and get the answer that you want. So in summary, this is a very quick way to get up and running with Claude Code. I'm hoping that this is not going to give you everything that you need, but it should give you that initial push to get started on using this kind of tool and figure out where you want to go from here. Please drop them into the comments below. I read all of them. I like to reply to all of them whenever I can. And hopefully you'll connect with me on LinkedIn, sign up for the courses, sign up for the Talent Academy and the free resources, and we'll hopefully see you on the next one. Thank you.